Atomic habits. The fundamentals why tiny changes make a big difference. 1. The surprising power of atomic habits. Prevailing wisdom claims that the best way to achieve what we want in life, including getting into better shape, building a successful business, relaxing more and worrying less, and spending more time with friends and family, is to set up specific, actionable goals. For many years, this was how I approached my habits too. Each one was a goal to be reached. I set goals for the grades I wanted to get in school, for the weights I wanted to lift in the gym, and for the profits I wanted to earn in business. I succeeded at a few, but I failed at a lot of them. Eventually, I began to realize that my results had very little to do with the goals I set, and nearly everything to do with the systems I followed. What's the difference between systems and goals? Goals are about the results you want to achieve. Systems are about the processes that lead to those results. If you want better results, then forget about setting goals. Focus on your system instead. If you were a basketball coach and you ignored your goal to win a championship and focused only on what your team does at practice each day, would you still get results? I think you would. 2. How your habits shape your identity and vice versa. Why is it so easy to repeat bad habits and so hard to form good ones? Few things can have a more powerful impact on your life than improving your daily habits. Yet it is likely that this time next year, you'll be doing the same thing rather than doing something better. Changing our habits is challenging for 2 reasons. 1. We try to change the wrong thing, and 2. We try to change our habits in the wrong way. Outcomes are about what you get. Processes are about what you do. Identity is about what you believe. Many people begin the process of changing their habits by focusing on what they want to achieve. This leads us to outcome-based habits. The alternative is to build identity-based habits. With this approach, we start by focusing on who we wish to become. Behind every system of actions is a system of beliefs. Imagine 2 people resisting a cigarette. When offered a smoke, the first person says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." The second person declines by saying, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." Behavior that is incongruent with the self will not last. The most effective way to change your habits is to focus not on what you want to achieve, but on who you wish to become. 3. How to build better habits in 4 simple steps. A habit is a behavior that has been repeated enough times to become automatic. The process of habit formation begins with trial and error. Whenever you encounter a new situation in life, your brain has to make a decision. How do I respond to this? Whenever you face a problem repeatedly, your brain begins to automate the process of solving it. Your habits are just a series of automatic solutions that solve the problems and stresses you face regularly. Habits are mental shortcuts learned from experience. The process of building a habit can be divided into 4 simple steps: cue, craving, response, and reward. If a behavior is insufficient in any of the 4 stages, it will not become a habit. Eliminate the cue that predicts a reward, and your habit will never start. Reduce the craving, and you won't experience enough motivation to act. Make the behavior difficult, and you won't be able to do it. If the reward fails to satisfy your desire, then you'll have no reason to do it again in the future. All behavior is driven by the desire to solve a problem, whether to obtain something good or to relieve pain. A simple set of rules called the 4 laws of behavior change can be used to build better habits. The first law, make it obvious. 4. The man who didn't look right. One of the most surprising insights about our habits is you don't need to be aware of the cue for a habit to begin. You can notice an opportunity and take action without dedicating conscious attention to it. This is what makes habits useful. It's also what makes them dangerous. As habits form, your actions come under the direction of your automatic and non-conscious mind. You fall into old patterns before you realize what's happening. The more you repeat these patterns, the less likely you become to question what you're doing and why you're doing it. Before we can effectively build new habits, we need to get a handle on our current ones. This can be more challenging than it sounds because once a habit is firmly rooted in your life, it is mostly unconscious and automatic. If a habit remains mindless, you can't expect to improve it. One of our greatest challenges in changing habits is maintaining awareness of what we are actually doing. A simple exercise you can use to become more aware of your behavior is a habits scorecard. To create your own, make a list of your daily habits. Once you have a full list, look at each behavior and ask yourself, is this a good habit, a bad habit, or a neutral habit? The marks you give to a particular habit will depend on your situation and your goals. The process of behavior change always starts with awareness. 5. The best way to start a new habit. Researchers divided subjects into 3 groups. The control group was simply asked to track how often they exercised. The motivation group was asked to read material on the benefits of exercise and track their workouts. The third group was supplied with the same motivational material, but was asked to formulate a plan such as, during the next week, I will partake in at least 20 minutes of vigorous exercise on day at time in place. In the first and second groups, 35% to 38% of people exercised at least once per week. Interestingly, the motivational presentation given to the second group seemed to have no meaningful impact on behavior. In the third group, 91% of people exercised at least once a week, which was more than double the normal rate. The sentence they filled out became an implementation intention, a plan made beforehand about when and where to act. The 2 most common cues for a habit are time and location. Implementation intentions leverage both of these cues. People who make a specific plan for when and where they will perform a new habit are more likely to follow through. Many people think they lack motivation when what they really lack is clarity. Once an implementation intention has been set, you don't have to wait for inspiration to strike. Simply follow your predetermined plan. 6. Motivation is overrated. Environment often matters more. Every habit is initiated by a cue, and we are more likely to notice cues that stand out. It's easy not to practice the guitar when it's tucked away in the closet. It's easy not to read the book when the bookshelf is in the corner of the guest room. It's easy not to take your vitamins when they are out of sight in the pantry. If you want to make a habit a big part of your life, make the cue a big part of your environment. Put the apples in a bowl in the middle of the kitchen counter. Place your guitar on a stand in the living room. Keep water bottles in common locations around the house. By sprinkling triggers throughout your surroundings, you increase your odds that you'll think about your habit throughout the day. Make sure your best choice is the most obvious one. Making a better decision is easy and natural when the cues for good habits are right in front of you. Environment design allows you to take back control and become the architect of your life. Be the designer of your world and not merely the consumer of it. It is easier to build new habits in a new environment because you are not fighting against old cues in your old environment. 7. The secret to self-control. If you're overweight, a smoker, or an addict, you've been told your entire life that it is because you lack self-control. The idea that a little bit of discipline would solve all our problems is deeply embedded in our culture. Recent research, however, shows something different. When scientists analyze people who appear to have tremendous self-control, it turns out those individuals aren't all that different from those who are struggling. Instead, disciplined people are better at structuring their lives in a way that does not require heroic willpower and self-control. In other words, they spend less time in tempting situations. The people with the best self-control are typically the ones who need to use it the least often. So, yes, perseverance, grit, and willpower are essential to success. But the way to improve these qualities is not by wishing you were a more disciplined person, but by creating a more disciplined environment. You can break a habit, but you're unlikely to forget it. Once the mental grooves of habit have been carved into your brain, they are nearly impossible to remove entirely, even if they go unused for quite a while. That means simply resisting temptation is an ineffective strategy. A more reliable approach is to cut bad habits off at the source. One of the most practical ways to eliminate a bad habit is to reduce exposure to the cue that causes it. The secret to self-control is making the cues of your good habits obvious and the cues of your bad habits invisible. The second law, make it attractive. 8. How to make a habit irresistible. Junk food drives our reward system into a frenzy. After spending hundreds of thousands of years hunting and foraging for food in the wild, the human brain has evolved to place a high value on salt, sugar, and fat. Such foods are often calorie-dense and quite rare on the savanna. When you don't know where your next meal is coming from, eating as much as possible is an excellent strategy for survival. Today, however, food is abundant, but your brain continues to crave it like it is scarce. Placing a high value on salt, sugar, and fat is no longer advantageous to our health, but the craving persists. The more attractive an opportunity is, the more likely it is to become habit-forming. While it is not possible to transform every habit into a supernormal stimulus, we can make any habit more enticing. A neurotransmitter called dopamine stimulates craving. Every behavior that is highly habit-forming is associated with high levels of dopamine. When it comes to habits, dopamine is released not only when you experience pleasure, but also when you anticipate it. Often, it is the anticipation of a reward, not the fulfillment of it, that gets us to take action. Nearly any habit can be made more attractive by temptation bundling, which means pairing an action you want to do with an action you need to do. An example would be watching Netflix only when riding your stationary bike. 9. The role of family and friends in shaping your habits. We don't choose our earliest habits, we imitate them. We follow the script handed down by our friends and family and society at large. We imitate the habits of 3 groups in particular. 1. The people close around us. 2. The many. 3. The powerful. We tend to adopt habits that are praised and approved of by our culture because we have a strong desire to fit in and belong to the tribe. One study showed a person's chances of becoming obese increased by 57% if he or she had an obese friend. Another study found that if one person in a relationship lost weight, the partner would also slim down about 1/3 of the time. So join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. Surround yourself with people who have the habits you want to have yourself. Shared identity reinforces your personal identity. This is why remaining part of a group after achieving a goal is crucial to maintaining your habits. Friendship and community embed a new identity and help behaviors last over the long run. Many of our daily habits are also imitations of people we admire. We copy the habits of highly effective people because we desire success ourselves. If a behavior can get us approval, respect, and praise, we find it attractive. 10. How to find and fix the causes of your bad habits. Every behavior has a surface-level craving and a deeper underlying motive. A craving is just a specific manifestation of a deeper underlying motive. Your brain did not evolve with a desire to smoke cigarettes or to check Instagram or to play video games. At a deep level, you simply want to reduce uncertainty and relieve anxiety, to win social acceptance and approval, or achieve status. Look at nearly any product that is habit-forming and you'll see that it does not create a new motivation, but rather latches on to the underlying motives of human nature. Your habits are modern-day solutions to ancient desires. There are many different ways to address the same underlying motive. One person might learn to reduce stress by smoking a cigarette. Another person learns to ease their anxiety by going for a run. Your current habits are not necessarily the best way to solve the problems you face. They are just the methods you learn to use. The key to finding and fixing the causes of your bad habits is to reframe the associations you have about them. You can make hard habits more attractive if you can learn to associate them with a positive experience. The third law, make it easy. 11. Walk slowly but never backward. It's easy to get bogged down trying to find the optimal plan for change, such as the fastest way to lose weight, the best program to build muscle, or the perfect idea for a side hustle. We are so focused on figuring out the best approach that we never get around to taking action. I refer to this as the difference between being in motion and taking action. The two ideas sound similar, but they're not the same. When you're in motion, you're planning and strategizing and learning. Those are all good things, but they don't produce a result. Action, on the other hand, is the type of behavior that will deliver an outcome. The biggest reason we slip into motion rather than taking action is we want to delay failure. It's easy to be in motion and convince yourself that you're still making progress. When preparation becomes a form of procrastination, you need to change something. Habit formation is the process by which a behavior becomes progressively more automatic through repetition. The more you repeat an activity, the more the structure of your brain changes to become efficient at that activity. It doesn't matter if it's been 21 days or 300 days. It's the frequency that makes the difference. Your current habits have been internalized over the course of hundreds, if not thousands of repetitions. New habits require the same level of frequency. 12. The law of least effort. The central idea is to create an environment where doing the right thing is as easy as possible. Much of the battle of building better habits comes down to finding ways to reduce the friction associated with our good habits and increase the friction associated with our bad ones. There are many ways to prime your environment so it's ready for immediate use. Want to improve your diet? Chop up a ton of fruits and vegetables on weekends and pack them into containers so you have easy access to healthy, ready-to-eat options during the week. You can also invert this principle and prime the environment to make bad behaviors difficult. If you find yourself watching too much television, for example, then unplug it after each use, or move the television into a closet after each use. Only plug it back in or bring it out if you can say out loud the name of the show you want to watch. This setup can create just enough friction to avoid mindless viewing. It is remarkable how little friction is required to prevent unwanted behavior. When I hide beer in the back of the fridge where I don't see it, I drink less. Tricks are unlikely to curb a true addiction, but for many of us, a little bit of friction can be the difference between sticking with a good habit or sliding into a bad one. Redesign your life so the actions that matter most are also the actions that are easiest to do. 13. How to stop procrastinating by using the 2-minute rule. Habits are like the entrance ramp to a highway. They lead you down a path, and before you know it, you're speeding toward the next behavior. It seems easier to continue what you're doing than to start doing something different. Each evening, there is a tiny moment, usually around 5:15 p.m., that shapes the rest of my night. My wife walks in the door from work, and either we change into our workout clothes and head to the gym, or we crash onto the couch, order Indian food, and watch The Office. If I change clothes, I know the workout will happen. Every day there are a handful of moments that deliver an outsized impact. I refer to these little choices as decisive moments. This could be the moment you choose between driving your car or riding your bike, or between grabbing your homework or the video game controller. These choices are a fork in the road. Decisive moments set the options available to your future self. What you have for lunch is determined to an extent by the restaurant you choose. We are limited by where our habits lead us. This is why mastering our decisive moments throughout your day is so important. Each day is made up of many moments, but it is really only a few habitual choices that determine the path you take. When you start a new habit, start small. You'll find that almost any habit can be launched in a scaled-down version that takes less than 2 minutes to do. 14. How to make good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible. Sometimes success is less about making good habits easy and more about making bad habits hard. If you find yourself continually struggling to follow through on your plans, then you can make your bad habits more difficult by creating a commitment device. A commitment device is a choice you make in the present that controls your actions in the future. It is a way to lock in future behavior, bind you to good habits, and restrict you from bad ones. I have a friend with an outlet timer on his internet timer. At 10 p.m. each night, the timer cuts the power and everyone knows it's time to go to bed. I cut calories when dining at restaurants by asking the waiter to split my meal and box half before the meal is served. You may wish to prepay your yoga session. The key is to change the task such that it requires more work to get out of the good habit than to get started in it. The best way to break a bad habit is to make it impractical to do. Increase the friction until you don't even have an option to act. Often using technology to automate your habits can be the most reliable and effective way to guarantee the right behavior. The fourth law, make it satisfying. 15. The cardinal rule of behavior change. Imagine you're a giraffe roaming the plains of Africa. You're making decisions every day with immediate impact. You're thinking about what to eat or where to sleep or how to avoid a predator, and you're constantly focused on the present or the very near future. You live in an immediate return environment. In modern society, however, we live in a delayed return environment. We can work for years before our actions deliver the intended payoff. We work out so we won't be overweight next year. We put aside money now so we can retire decades from now. After thousands of years in an immediate return environment, our brains evolved to prefer quick payoffs to long-term ones. Every habit produces multiple outcomes across time. Unfortunately, those outcomes are often misaligned. Smoking might kill you in 10 years, but it reduces stress and eases your nicotine cravings now. Overeating is harmful in the long run, but appetizing in the moment.